Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this meeting of the Mayor Blue Ribbon Committee on Housing. Formal name is. We will go around real quick and just do attendance for committee members and staff. I'm Assistant Mayor Joe Kelly.
Council John Tabor. Peter Britt. Howard Snyder, Housing Navigator. Myron Maxim, this week.
Mary Long,
Eric Anderson.
Jen Stebbins Thomas,
Beth Moreau.
Tracy Kozak,
Kagan Megerich.
Jennifer Smith, from the legal department.
Peter Stiff, Larry Mann.
Wonderful. Thank you to all the committee members who were able to come to this meeting with pretty short notice. The goal of this meeting will be to narrow down questions for the top two ranking developers for the Sherburne School redevelopment project into permanently below market rate housing. Most of the members sent in questions. We have Jen from legal. This is a live living document that we will be editing. And we will be sending it out at the end of this meeting to those two top ranking potential partners. A couple of housekeeping matters. We may have, right now we have one representative from one of the top two. We may have another. No question should go directly to them. The questions will be written and emailed off to both entities, and we will get written responses back by the December 2nd city council meeting to be shared with the city council. So I just want to put that out there that even though there may be one or two entities, both entities may be here. No direct question should go to them. So given that, I think we can hop right in with going over some of the committee member questions. The goal is really to try to consolidate these questions so that we can actually get responses in the few weeks. A lot of these questions, as I think some of us have seen and we'll see it here, or some of them are pretty repetitive. So making sure we can merge them, ideally getting down to 10-ish questions that are coming from this committee.
Jen, can you zoom just a little bit?
All right, also, just a quick note on the numbering. At the top of the document are the questions from the individual council members, which is why they start with question 22 when we get to the housing. Those of you were emailed earlier.
It's interactive.
Awesome, thank you.
And if I need to get better, just go.
Awesome, no, that's great, thank you. This is just a collation of the questions we've already seen.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. So we will go with start with question number 2. There are some, as Jen pointed out, some, I guess like the descriptions and comments. Yeah, those will be edited out. Those are just kind of in this living document right now. So we have question 22, land lease with city plus a contingency to lease the school separately for tax credit reasons, needs further explanation. So I guess I would look to Mr. Anderson to what question are you trying?
In their proposal, there was an arrangement for the land.
Yes.
And then they mentioned that there was an arrangement that they would like to discuss with the city for the building. And it had something to do with the tax credit capability of the project. So that's, I didn't see that in the other proposal specifically like that, but it was mentioned in Poe's proposal. And I just wanted to know what that meant from a funding perspective, or why there was a difference in the way that they approached that.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yep. So how would you like to formulate that question?
Just an explanation of what their expectation is between a land lease and a building lease.
Sorry, the difference between?
This was in POA's proposal area.
Yes,
Okay,
they proposed a payment to the city all in advance to create a bigger tax credit.
right, I think it increased the basis of the project.
But it was a non-cash transaction, and I agree with Eric, it was a little hard to understand.
a deeper explanation of that in the non-cash transaction.
So is the question,
It's just a question of
Why?
explanation. It's more in their court to see how they're gonna fund the project. But it's just for our knowledge to understand why they're proposing this, where it wasn't that way in the PHE proposal. I didn't see it. That's,
Okay, so Eric, is this articulated the way that you like it to be? What does this mean from a funding perspective? What is your expectation of the difference between a land lease and?
buildings.
How about, can you clarify the difference between a land lease and a building?
For the need of it in respect to funding.
There's one path.
Okay. Question number 3 is, will there be a comprehensive traffic study? I guess my question would be point of clarification for staff. That would be, is that something that is normally just included in a site plan and through TAC? And so is that something, I guess, do we need to ask that question, or is that something that?
That would come through the technical advisory committee, the site review process.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be a question. They would have to provide traffic information. It's one of the criteria of submittal. So
Okay. So do we, yes,
Who would perform it?
well, whoever they hire,
they would hire.
They would hire.
yes,
Because we previously, some meetings ago, we did receive a report that PHA had done a traffic study.
Mhm.
And it was, we didn't get into the realm of it, but now, I mean, these proposals are coming up between 118 and 130 parking spaces. What's the traffic implication going to be for traffic
So when
flow?
they get to a specific proposal, they have to provide the traffic study based on the number of units they're gonna provide. So it'd be specific to their ultimate proposal, which is, we're not there yet. But when it comes through that process.
Which would have some implication to impact, right? Traffic impact.
correct. So that would, so I guess in my opinion, this question is not necessary because it would have to be provided via through the process. How do people, this is, I agree. I want to make a clarified statement. This is an open realm of communication, and so there's no need to raise hand. I think just talk out loud.
yeah, like any developer would have to check that box,
What's part of site plan review?
Yeah.
Okay.
no matter who it is.
Okay, yeah. As a committee, are we okay with removing that, knowing that any developer at any development site will have to have that? It'll
Yes.
happen through the planning board. Okay. Mr. Eric, is that okay?
That's fine. If it's going to be part of the process, it shouldn't be doing it, that's all.
Okay,
So.
perfect. Thank you. City Government Professor. Thanks. The next observation. Next question, what happens if a problem arises outside the ability of the on-call post staff? Okay, so, for me, I look at this as maybe it shouldn't be a POA specific question, but more of a generalized question to both potential development partners. Please give us an example or model base of how you deal with on-site tenant issues
At any time of the day.
at any time of the day.
PHA did address it in theirs.
Yes, yep. And then I would assume that would be the right response.
A poet addressed it too, but there was similarities.
Okay, so do we feel like that, do we as a committee feel like that was answered effectively in their plans?
I feel like they gave a great. There's a statement on it. I don't know if it's a statement that if we get further clarification on would change the results of.
Sway, yeah.
Yeah, sway the results. So it's the only reason why if we're picking only 10 questions, I might not ask it. Because they have someone on site, it sounds like 9 to 5, a half part-time maintenance person or the maintenance person that switches between Dover. So whether or not it's exactly what the building needs, I think is to be seen, but I don't know if the answer would change the decisions, but maybe that's just my opinion.
How do other people feel? Essential.
I mean, it's
question,
an
non-essential
it's an operational issue of whoever is in charge of the property, and it needs some explanation to the satisfaction of the community that the residents are gonna not, you know, be hindered by lack of attention.
The RFP specifically requested, and it was part of the ranking of establishing a management. And so, all the respondents provided a management plan. Is there something specific in the management plan, Eric, that is it on call after hours? Was there one of the entities didn't give enough information, or?
I thought they both gave fairly satisfactory information, so there'd be 24-hour on-call service. It's a facility.
So maybe we wouldn't need to ask the question.
Are you thinking though, like to
That's the way I read it.
a sense of how they operationally work, whereas we are kind of as community familiar with how PHA operates in this? And so are you looking to get more information on like what the operations would be like since it's an unknown?
You guys how PhD operates.
So like we understand because all of the other housing in the community is PHA, so we have an understanding of how
Your operational.
operational stuff works there. But by asking this question, are you looking to get a stronger sense of the operations at FOA?
Yeah, that would be. That would be
That's part of why
fair.
you're
That would
asking
be
it?
fair. They're not as established as PHAs in what we understand, so we'll let them make an explanation, a further explanation of how they're going to, you know, handle the situation. You know, with staff, with on-call staff.
So do we want to, can we, just as we're having this, because I feel like the committee's kind of split on this as of right now. So can we maybe like highlight that in different colors so that it's one that we, yeah, come back to, you know what I mean? Because we still have fire other people's questions. Okay, question 25, is there any reason to check the reference that POA has submitted? I personally don't think that's a question to ask them. I would say that would fell on the staff to verify. So I don't know how people feel. I feel like that.
Yeah, that was part of the RFP.
Yes.
Process, yeah.
Okay, people okay if we drop that?
Okay. Another question, just to confirm, the Sherburne project as submitted from POA include section 11, section 8 units.
That would be in their table.
I tried to calculate it between the two and, you know, with the different scenarios, it would come up with. I looked at it a couple, 3 times, and that's the number I came up with. I could be wrong.
But I think it might change based off of their final project, right?
Yeah.
Depending on what they can get financing for, might also change the income levels that are allowed in it as well. So I'm not really sure if that's a fair question without the final project on the table.
It asks a little bit the question in terms of like what the committee is looking, right? Because I think confirming that there's 11 or some number of section 8, I think maybe more this, I mean, the way I look at it is, are we looking to have the developer be able to provide housing that's targeting that 30% AMI, right? Which is that like the section 8. And if yes, I think more so the question is, you know, is there a commitment to provide some number or some, you know, that at that level?
Now, I would maybe change that terminology to like voucher based.
Yeah, yeah.
Instead of section 8.
Yeah.
On page 28, I have a whole breakdown.
Okay.
It's 11 project-based section 8 vouchers.
In their current proposal.
They have a pretty detailed breakdown
So
of
maybe
how much each.
a question that could be posed, again, maybe highlight this one, that could be posed to both developers, are you committed to, through whatever securing of financing, I'm just wordsmithing this, are you committed to making sure that you have some units available for a voucher program?
I mean, I don't know, that just feels like second guessing them for the proposal in its entirety. Like that's the entire intent of these proposals. Seems, I would say this is kind of a wasted question. They've
Okay,
broken down what they intend to do. Are we calling to account their integrity on their, I mean, yes, there's probably going to be some flexibility back and forth, but
And the number may go up or down, 1 or 2
Sure.
units or something like that as it goes through the bidding process.
So more so, I think there have been questions already submitted that we got to read that address the ability to be flexible should funding not be there for the project. And that to me is more important.
So do we want to remove this one? Great.
I would just echo
Yes.
that any questions, and there were a lot at the council meeting, there's probably gonna be a lot here. Any questions about the unit mix or scale of the design? That it can go any direction depending what the committees or city council says to design. The RFP was very vague and said, give us what you think you should do. But many of those designers could do any
Yep.
set number of units depending on what they're given. So a question like, well, can you do 82 units? Well, of course they can. So I just want to focus. Yeah, I think the questions would be better, more informative if they deal with operations and contractual arrangements rather than the program, because we can all control that.
Yeah.
Depending, no matter who it is.
Yeah.
Pretty much, but the finances and the contractual and the operational things might be the things that differ between groups.
I agree with you. Let's just to make sure we're respectful to everyone who's submitted questions, let's just go through and we'll just pop them up. If you are adamantly against something, say it before, you know what I mean, say it right away, and then we can go right into it.
Is that question going?
That question is coming up, please. Another question, considerable time is stated and required to obtain all financing components of the project. It appears that they are competitive in nature. What happens if the financial component to be approved is funded? What replaces the funding component? I would say, we can go over this in a little bit, but Councillor Cook has this question covered. Her question is, if chosen, what happens if there is a change in federal housing grant programs in the next year, which eliminates anticipated funding sources for new housing proposals? How do you then approach building this project? So I would say that from Councillor covers.
It's lended itself.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yep,
That's a very important question.
exactly. And I think we'll see a lot of that as we go through fire inspection, where everyone's questions, they're gonna be repetitive and they just.
Yeah, I think there's a little more specificity here. Kate said.
Have the cost, next question, have the cost projections in this submission been based on current standing line items, or has there been a reflection of forecast and adjustment factors in for out year construction materials and factors?
Like they address that in the.
I felt that was addressed.
I think they all had the statement that this is current. It's so flexible and amorphous that.
Jerry knows what's gonna happen.
I would like to think that they would reflect on that, at least from what we've experienced in the last couple of years. with Costs and everything.
Yeah.
It's just, this is.
I would say that they're
I think there's some
developers.
reality to the
Yeah, but they're
project.
both, I would say that they're both developers, and again, to kind of go to David's point, like, we're asking a fisherman to show us that he knows how to catch a fish. You know, both of these entities have built project in the last, few years. Both of the entities are looking to build a project. I think we can trust to them as the two highest ranking to understand, forecasting of building project. Sorry, Jen, I didn't get.
No, and not to belabor the point, but I know that with light tech credits, you have to competitively bid a project, so they're gonna get the best pricing they can.
Do we feel comfortable as a committee? Okay, we'll take that one off. Next question, is the tenant selection process dedicated by a formulated process to which the city of Portsmouth has little influence, or does the city of Portsmouth have adequate standing in this process? I personally object to this because it kind of insinuates that there could be housing discrimination, because those are, we don't have a say in who gets to live in these homes. I think that has been very clear. It's very clear to me. If it's not clear to these committee members, we can send out kind of housing laws.
I recall all the proposals stating that they need to do their tenant selection process through state, federal,
And yes,
and
guidelines.
and guidelines, legal requirements and so forth. But also that if there were to be, as much as allowed by law, there could be through the negotiation process later on, then there would be a certain dictation about local.
Yeah.
But it was addressed, I believe, in the response also.
The two caveats that were addressed were that you could create a preference for people who worked in Portsmouth.
Yeah.
And you could create a preference for artists.
That's what my question was based. We,
Okay.
we're in, through the whole regulatory process, federal, state, or whatever, would Portsmouth have any interjection into, guiding the selection process for this facility? And if it's true that, Portsmouth wants somebody that works in Portsmouth, does that factor into the selection process? Or is that outside the federal guidelines?
I think all you can say is whether or not priority is given to
Yes.
persons that actually already are working in the area. I don't think you can do much more than that.
Yeah, and what would be helpful is not to include this as a question, but to know where to look to see what the preferences actually are, what the guidelines are. Like, we don't need to ask the firms that. If we know where to look, we can go do the research ourselves.
Could a question be, I don't know if this is feasible, if POA partnered with PHA on the tenant process so that there was some consolidation among, like, if you're thinking about someone looking for housing, like, are you applying to two different systems or like,
Like there's people already waiting on a list.
yeah, so if there's some sort of, opportunity to consolidate, like, out of respect for tenants and
I don't know how that goes, like sharing, like, what I mean, information, and I would be hesitant to put that on there, because I think you're setting a precedent of like trying to tell these two entities that they may have to work together and, setting a expectation that, a list could be shared when, like,
The privacy laws alone.
women really want that.
no, yeah, I like definitely like that's not allowed, but is there an opportunity for them to partner on this? I guess is actually my question. Is there an opportunity for POA to partner with PHA at least on some of the rental process?
And I would, I understand your question, Mary, but maybe the statement is more is there an opportunity for either or to partner with each other as opposed to one having to partner with the other? You see what I'm saying? Like one of
Do
the
you see
two.
any possibilities of partnering with either organization?
Yes,
For
Just
the
make it
wait list or something.
yes.
Do we have a set number of questions we can ask?
We're trying to narrow our questions down to 10 to 15 because we do have council questions. So this is we're on the first one. We said we're gonna ideally quickly start going. We're gonna go through everyone's questions submitted. So I would say we probably need to stop dissecting every single question and we kind of straw vote. If we like the question, then we can dive into it after we've reviewed all the questions and we'll change the format real quick. And then, because we still have other questions. So if we like a question, we'll keep it and then we'll kind of go through everyone else's questions. Does that work? Sorry for the change up. We have a hard stop in 50 minutes.
Well, let's nix this one, would be my.
Okay. Straw vote to move this one.
I would really like to ask the question about the collaboration. That one is important to me.
Okay. Can we
But
make
the other aspect of the question isn't important to me. It's just looking to see if there's
collaboration on future tenant?
or
process?
just
I think any collaboration, you foresee any collaboration.
collaboration.
We had that.
Tenant collaboration.
No.
Or just any
Any
plan?
collaboration, any type of collaboration.
Please.
Do they foresee that that's a possibility? And what might they see?
With the other entity.
Okay. Question number 2. This question is, how long the Sherburne School will be mothballed in the scenario, if scenario 1 or 2 will be phased, would need some clarity better sign the progress of development. How do you feel about that?
I think they've
Outline their
answered
timeline.
that, yeah.
Yeah, but they've given it in 3 scenarios. One with a completion date of 27
Mhm,
with 71 units in mothballing the school.
mhm.
How long do they expect to mothball the school? Is that another 2-year mothball? I mean, there should be some distinction of what that particular proposal means for the development of the project. I would think it would be a simple answer from them to some respect to make some explanation of what their intent to say, we want to mothball the school.
Okay.
That's a
Okay, so
lot.
maybe the question is just if mothballing the school, what is the foreseeable timeline on that?
Before it's
Before-
adaptive reuse of it,
Yes.
and during that time, who maintains ownership
Ship of the
and
building.
maintenance of it, so it doesn't fall into greater disrepair.
I'm not entirely literate in reading some of these spreadsheets that were included, but they had a phase one and a phase two.
Right.
So maybe the question is, what's the time frame on phase one and phase two? Because phase two was presumably, is the way I interpreted it, was the addressing the Sherburne itself. So they would start with building the new units and then they would address the school.
That's what they said.
I just wanted, it wasn't well explained.
No, they didn't have any dates or timelines on it.
I think if we ask them for date and timelines, we're not gonna get them because we don't know.
Does the city get to choose the scenario?
Yeah, they're gonna.
Yeah.
ultimately put the contract with them.
Yes.
Okay, so that would,
But they're not gonna pick a specific, they're not gonna award a specific group development and then say you're gonna do one A. It's gonna go through a community vetting process, so it could be a hybridization of one A from this group, one A from that group, and concept two from another, so.
so while a valid question, it might be a waste of the question at this period of time.
The Sherburne School may end up not being mothballed.
Yeah.
It may be removed and it may be quickly converted over into a community center. And who knows with this.
Or artist.
Butterfly garden.
I think,
I think just a brief answer from them would give it some clarity. That's the only reason I asked the
Okay,
question.
we can highlight that one and we'll come back.
Debate or anything. of
Okay.
that nature.
The next question, in any phased approach, as just described, what would be the completion date? I don't think we can put that in there, so I think, yeah, we can
They
take
can't
that
answer
out.
that.
What type of traffic study? We can take that out. What exactly is asset allocation and its meaning? There appears to be some structural change at a 15-year pertaining to ownership. Feels like this subject should be fully vetted.
that's related to LIHTC credits.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Say again.
uh,
So
your-
the way that LIHTC credits are structured, you have a specific ownership LLC organization. And I think that they all change at year 15 or 30.
Right.
So I don't think there would be a difference because both developers are using LIHTC credits. I think they both have the same structure.
It doesn't change the structure of the ownership, does it?
No, because the city's gonna own the property no matter what. They're gonna have a lease. That's not changing.
So I feel like that to me is a question that is vetted out through legal during the lease process, so I feel comfortable. I see a lot of head shaking, moving.
It's the same for both entities too, so we don't get any
Okay.
competitive clarity.
Next question, with all the funding possibilities required for the project PJ has identified the city of Portsmouth, the TIP would be necessary, funding would be necessary. Could PJ elaborate on what extent and purpose? I think. Figure out.
I mean, I think that doesn't really weigh on which entity that we end up speaking with, because they both have the same opportunities of funding.
Yeah.
So it's not gonna really.
If this is helpful, I did go back and look. PHA had 3 requests in the citizen capital request.
Yeah.
One for recreational fields.
Which one are you doing?
One for preservation of the school and one for infrastructure.
Okay,
There were no amounts, no anything like that. So it would indicate that they have wanted the city to think about capital spending.
And this is like a sub question of,
how are you gonna be funding?
yeah, and what happens if some of that funding disappears?
Correct, so I think,
But it was distinctive that POA did not mention any request for possibility of city funding.
which
And that was the only reason that I noticed the difference between the two proposals. Where PHA said, yes, there is a possibility that in our funding, we're looking for the city of Portsmouth to contribute to this project.
Yeah, and I think
I
that
think
if you
that's-
look,
I
if
think
you
that's
look
a
through the
legitimate
60-year
question.
history, the city has contributed funds, so I don't think it is
Well,
a,
I think
it's an
there's-
element.
I think PHA should have maybe some explanation of what their expectations of that might be, because it's a tax base, it's a
Yeah,
tax
which
base.
I would assume that they would answer in the more detailed funding question. That's
Well,
what it comes
and
to.
just going along with what Eric is saying, if there's a concern on the question, you noted PHA has stated, that they request CIP funds, right?
They might.
They may. They may request CIP funds. Are they prepared with other funding mechanisms in case they do not get those funds?
Which is covered by Kate's question.
But yeah,
Right. So, in just talking that out, do you think that it's already covered, or do you want a specific?
I don't know that PHA could get very specific. They've just mentioned possibility of that being a funding mechanism
What-
within their
I
structure.
think what Howard is
Where-
saying is Kate's,
Go ahead.
Counselor Cook's question is, if chosen, what will happen and if there's a change in federal housing grant programs the next year, which would eliminate anticipated funding? So saying,
Right, but that's federal and
Yeah.
that's
So-
local, so
Yeah.
should we add to Kate's?
so that's what I was just gonna say, so we can add.
Yeah.
to
Right.
that.
In what scenario would you require CIP from, I mean, I don't know what CIP is.
I mean, these are $40 million projects, so, you know, you have to have some accountability. At least has to be some fiscal explanation of
Yeah.
what's going to take place. And I would think that PHA would have the ability to at least, they might not be able to answer it exactly, but they might be able to answer it in some perspective for what their expectation would be.
So we can add that to Counselor Cook's question.
Yes.
Just the, in what scenario would you require CIP funding?
Yes.
That one?
Yes. Okay. Next, there's a question about congressional funding. What does that mean? I think we all know that you can apply for, because one of the first things we did in this committee, was to support a letter of congressional spending, so I don't necessarily think that is necessary. As you said, Dagan, we can do our own research of what congressional spending there can be. Are we all okay with removing that question? Okay. And we're reviewing the project communication section and community engagement process appears to be more focused on internal city government structure and decision, be beneficial for the proposal. And entails outreach, how deep does it go, to affected neighborhood for public engagement. That's just a comment, sorry about that. If awarded an agreement to PHA, do they have the bandwidth to develop two workforce housing projects at the same time? Very much.
They already spoke to this.
I was gonna say, he asked this question already.
I must have missed it, didn't it?
Yeah.
We did in one of our meetings, they were
Yeah.
here meeting with us, they answered that question. And
Okay.
the answer was yeah.
Okay. We'll put it on. Okay, to confirm, with their proposal, will the Sherburne School possibly have 24? I think we've already covered the other one. Then
And that's next to the comment.
next is comment, and then we have a catch-all question. Is there any information supplemental to your original proposal that you would like the council to consider? Okay, and then we can move on to the other submissions. Oh, did they not get sent over to you?
Yeah. Take it into this.
Okay.
No, then right there.
It's here.
Yeah.
They're just sitting into a print.
Gotcha. Okay.
So the little wordy, you might just skip the first sentence there and just go into what strategies, yeah. Or the start starting with how does, how does the proposal specifically aim to attract families? In both in terms of housing, but maybe just families. Stop there, and then what strategies do you employ to ensure that development is appealing and accessible to young families? And how do you envision supporting the families in the future?
We know I ride for this question, which for those of you who are millennials, which means I love it. How does everyone else feel for this question? Ride. It's ride or die. How does everyone else feel?
Is this honing in again on that, the preferences?
No, to me, this hones in on the differences of bedroom sizes
Yeah.
and the conversation of we're continuously losing young families.
Is there gonna be a swing set?
Yeah.
Is there gonna be some
Yeah, it's a combination
attraction?
of the housing program, what the units are, 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom, and amenities.
Yeah, I mean, I think in the proposal it called out community space and it called out like various things that it was aiming to solve for. This was something that wasn't necessarily called out. It's just looking for strategies that the different development partners have employed in the past or would employ relative to that specific goal.
Okay. How do we feel?
My version of that question was just asking, can you speak to the number, the unit allocation and why? And then seeing how they answer to that. I think the other thing to consider is not around schools or families, but co-housing as well, like allowing for roommates if possible. I don't know that, how that's dictated through federal funding. But that also impacts like the ability to have teachers, sharing space, and then also providing that education.
But we also did have that conversation with welfare director who said we have lots of larger units in the city, but they're single people living in them. And we need to get them out. And she says, what we're really short of is 1 bedroom. So
I think it's,
how do you balance that?
and Owen mentioned they're looking at the places to live study and the outcomes from that as well and referencing that. So it's like, I think it's. To play devil's advocate, are we not asking both of these developers to go out into the community and hear what it is that we need and
Yeah.
reflect the design back to us? So if they hear, because Byron's in their ear saying like, you need to build stuff for families, they'll do that. I guess I just don't.
This also goes back to what Tracy was saying, where we're asking about the breakdown of number of units and how it's gonna be laid out. And I think this is like the crux of what we're trying to do here. But I'm just concerned that.
And maybe,
So should we, I'm sorry, just literally saying up front. Should we highlight this one and go through the rest?
Yes.
Okay, so we can highlight this one. Okay, and then both proposals indicate flexibility in design, da, 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 da.
Well, that goes to what Tracy said.
Yeah, I think everyone will be able to say we can change, we can mix, we'll find things within the community that we like from the different proposals or it's something, a new idea, and fix it. Eric?
Yeah, that's a respectable question, Maureen, because the two proposals that were drastically different from the visual perspective.
I think what
But they were designs that I think,
They weren't, so this leaves the opportunity for one to take the other and the other to take the, I don't know.
I think what I was looking for is sort of like regional boundaries in terms of like the sort of the high end and the low end in terms of like what was either.
what is
developers-
flexible, how
Yeah.
much flexibility
Yeah.
do you have based on your idea of financing and cost
Yeah,
to adjust?
like at what point in terms of number of units does PHA say like this isn't really like something that's feasible in terms of providing like where are those boundaries? Like is it 50 units and we get a certain mix of specific AMI breakdowns? Like what does that scale specifically look like? I think I was looking for the boundaries of that in terms of the flexibility.
And I don't think you can get those boundaries if that's.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think it's too early.
Yeah, it's an important topic that needs to be and will be addressed later on.
Yeah.
But to have them start thinking about architectural style, how it impacts removal or addition of 1 or 2 units is gonna be too challenging at this point.
And they did state their ambitions.
Yeah.
What they were,
Yeah.
the breakdowns that they were hoping.
I
Okay,
think if
are we
ask
cool?
this, we don't.
Are we
get-
cool to remove
No,
this?
yeah, absolutely.
Okay, great, I know, I'm sorry, I'm just, yeah.
You're just making sure I get to my next meeting.
Yes, okay, POA proposes potential use of the gym space teams in the work community. I think that is gonna be part of the public engagement process of figuring out what the whole city and the more close-knit community from Panaway to Coakley, whether some people don't think it's Coakley. Like what that section of the city might need. And I think that we can't ask them to answer that until the community, like Jen said. Okay. Okay, PJ proposes higher density than POA. What is their strategy for addressing?
The
concerns
inverse
about-
of the other one in terms
Yeah.
of looking for boundaries. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. So we're not, I mean, that's fine.
okay.
Valiant effort, Byron.
We have, yep, we have that one.
Is there no other
That was it.
middles? Counselors, that was it.
Okay,
I
so,
I had a submittal for POA.
We were all there. We were in there. I read all of your questions.
That's it, if you look on the screen.
Jennifer.
The one that you didn't think was there.
We go back to the questions around the CIP funding. I had a thought that maybe it's useful.
Yeah, I added it to Kate's. Yeah, I just, before we do that, if you're okay, can we just go through the counselor questions real quick? So that we can see if anything feels already, you know what I mean, encapsulated in that. I don't know if I use the word right now. Bagley, in the past 2 years, have you encountered any major projects that did not come to fruition? I think that's a good question.
Yep.
And why? Over the past few years, have any municipalities or partners you've worked with faced essential costs or expenditures for projects that were not completed or unlikely to be completed? I think that's a,
What is this question getting at?
Agreed, it's like a leading question.
yeah. I think it's like, have you partnered with a town that spent about a bunch of money and then a project didn't come through? I don't necessarily think that is.
They gave a bunch of references and projects that they've
Yes.
done that were successful, so, yeah, I don't understand the intention.
Well, can we just highlight that? I'm gonna text him off so I can also.
You can believe it.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Turn it in something costs from it, okay. Since the RFP was issued, has any leadership staff on your team contacted? I don't think that's this. Legally appropriate. Yep. Okay.
I have a letter.
You could strike through these and say to the council, we recommend not asking. for questions.
They're going down tomorrow morning, so council's not gonna have a say.
Okay, they have been vetted, okay, okay,
If you want to text.
yeah, yeah.
Just, yeah, anywhere we're duplicative of what we've done tonight.
Yeah. Okay, okay, Counselor Blaylock, the school is kept not for the gym, that is also a great neighborhood feel. How does this affect the affordability of the project? How many units? How many bedrooms? And at what percentage? Okay,
Let's get an AI effect.
Isn't that in the proposals?
yeah, that should be effect. If the affordable housing and the preservation of the school buildings, including the gym. Gola project, then what is the maximum number of affordable units? How many bedrooms and what percentage? Yep, sorry, just read that. If the aesthetic and the preservation of the school buildings through the gym.
Sorry, can we
Yeah.
just pause on six
Yep,
real quick?
yeah.
Like, I don't understand what that question is getting at. Because wasn't that the whole proposal?
Yeah, of offering two different scenarios. Yes.
Thought the proposal had the exact numbers.
I mean, I just, like, to me, if I'm one of these people
Yeah.
reading that, either like, I'm creating a whole new proposal, or my answer is, please see my proposal.
I should be writing a turkey.
But yeah,
Here's the page.
yeah. But so the problem is we really aren't gonna be able to edit and delete.
So
the
we
ones-
can't edit the council ones, that's what you're saying.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. We just want to.
We're
make sure we don't
reviewing
blame
to
them.
make sure that there's not.
Just agree.
There's nothing left.
Yeah, nothing less than that.
Well, at least the answers will be easy.
Yeah.
We see page-
We say page 22.
Right.
Okay, where are we? Number seven.
So then we're only going through these to see if there's any redundancy.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. 8 is information on the inverse relationship of affordability and setting up. Interesting question. Do you currently? Well, property manager and
I'm
say,
gonna say no.
will the tax credit?
But we, like, number 10,
Yeah.
property manager on site,
Yes.
will there be, like, we already have that.
Yes, so then, yeah, we already have that information.
And they're gonna say refer to our
Yes,
section 3.
But ultimately, we as a committee can give no input on these questions.
yes.
Okay.
The council wants. Yes. What are your plans for reinvestment in affordable housing in Portsmouth in the future? What is your relationship with local nonprofits? Any potential to partner for a community center in the school building? And then Councilor Cook, this is one that we chose over ours for both firms, and then number 15 for POA.
Can we change Kate's at all to
We
eliminate that?
We added the line, the last lines.
Yeah, what happens if there's a change in any of your sources of funding in the next?
Instead of just
in
federal,
the
you're
next-
saying,
Yes.
you do federal and or,
And state, yeah.
yeah, federal and or state or something. Okay, sounds good. For POA on property management, who do the residents trust when they're complaint with the property management staff? Or specifically, if the on-site management is not handling their complaints, concerns, and when approved, how do they escalate that concern? Okay, I feel like. Okay, number 16, finally for PHA, your proposal lists a specific preference for allow artists under section 42 of the Irish Code. Could you please explain this more? And again, that is where there'll be a little bit more insight of some of these of the legally allowed preferences.
And Eric, I feel like question 15 kind of addresses some of your concerns about the management.
Yes.
So it'll be good, it'll be in there.
Yep, so we'll go back through our questions that we had highlighted. Oh, can you go, oh, Tabor, nope, no, you're good, sorry. So John, the cost per unit appears to be 383 in the L building, that's 50% lower than 449. Please explain how PHA chooses lower cost. Great. What are the competitive advantages?
That's just sort of a catch-all.
Yeah. Okay. As the chart below shows, co units are covered 30 to 60% AMI. Is your program with 10 units moved from 60% to 50% possible, or is this not remain, and why not? I think that kind of goes to, we can change this counselor's question. He's in the room, yeah. Is there concern that that goes to kind of like what Tracy was saying, like the
design mix.
design mix?
I don't know how you
and-
choose your AMI buckets. I just think they'll say, yeah, it's possible.
Yeah, so so then is it worth a question, I guess is.
Well,
Is it a question that's being asked and it can bring somewhere else?
Yeah,
right, I mean, what I was driving at was is one proposer able to keep rents lower than the other?
Maybe why are you the best developer for keeping the rents as low as possible?
Yeah.
Is that what you're asking about the price per unit? The cost per unit?
well, because I think Jen made a really
Per
good point.
unit is more about like getting the project done.
Yeah,
Right.
Because if you're too high per unit, the people who are judging the credits are gonna say, I only have so much money to give out. I'd rather give out money to somebody who's not like blowing the bank, right? Okay, but like,
But
Okay.
there's the ability for some of these developers to self-fund out. And then become expert.
are you asking me?
That in an oversimplified way, if they can get $300,000 in credits to construct. But their budget's at $450. Some of the proposals stated that they were able to fund that $150. And they weren't solely dependent on just.
Oh, let's say that.
I'm not saying it or BHM, just saying some of the proposals stated that. So are we, does it matter?
I think it does.
That if one entity says we can do it for 300 and another entity says, well, it's gonna be 450, but we can cover the 150 difference ourselves.
Yeah, that's my feeling. If it doesn't, if there's no financial impact on the city regarding which way, how much the unit costs, I don't think it's really relevant to the decision making. I just strongly disagree that there's no impact to the chances of this project getting done. Because whether we like it or not, both of these groups have an opportunity to do other projects.
Yeah.
And LIHTC credits have an opportunity to go to other developers.
Yeah.
And I think you have to live in a realistic mindset that you can't like, yes, somebody could build $1 million a unit. But the chances of that getting done are a lot less than the chances of a $350,000 a unit.
So you're saying to essentially discount the fact they're saying, hey, we could cover the difference either way. It's like, well, that could affect going from 100 units to 80 units if you have to then cover the difference. Oh, after tax credit and X, Y, and Z. Over to John's point of like, why are you building so much, why are you saying it's price per unit is so much higher and why are you saying price per unit?
And I'm taking thinking that they've stated in their proposal that
That
they
we
could
can
do
fund
a
it.
viable project.
Yeah,
And we recognize, in our opinion, that a unit for a certain income range, everything is gonna be $450, and there's a different group that's saying, we can do this project, but we believe the cost is gonna be at $300. Both have said that they can do these projects.
yeah.
Can I just mention, the cost per unit is kind of the same conversation as the design program, because if you have, the most expensive things with the units are the exterior wall per square footage ratio and bathrooms and kitchens per unit ratio. So if you have a lot of little separate standalone units, they're gonna be more expensive because you're building more
Exterior walls.
walls. If you have a lot of one-bedroom units, they're gonna be more expensive per square foot than three-bedroom units because they have more kitchen per square foot. The other thing to consider is the cost of operation once it's built. So how much energy are you spending each year? So it could be a little bit more expensive first cost, but over 10 years, it's a lot cheaper. So
Were we feeling that this, you can, even if you'd like.
I, whatever the committee advises to do. If you look at the two proposals, the rents are identical. Except for, this area between 50 and 60%. That's what I wanted to see.
We asked.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with Tracy. Conceptually, the design, the projects were presented visually different. One was a standing 4-story building and the other one were 8 units scattered throughout the property. And I would just, logically, figure that the cost of those 8 units would be more than one standing building. So I think that's reflected in the fact of the difference in the cost of the unit. I don't know that
Mr. Anderson,
exactly.
I love when we agree.
Visually, the 8 units look more fitting into the character of the area than a 4-story building. That was my opinion, but it just, that's the way it visually presented it.
You think this question has an obvious answer?
What's that?
But also keep in mind that tax credits are competitive and they only issue so many. So we want the most attractive, the developer is going to get the most attractive application that will actually get awarded those tax credits, right? Because that's the most likely they're going to need them in order for any of these projects to get done, but they only award so many each year.
Okay, so I think we could, kind of going off what Tracy said, and I think we could maybe pull. I understand where people are coming from, but I think that maybe we could pull this question. You're okay with that, John? Okay. Which one? That's a great question. I feel like we combined these two questions in our conversation. So
Ones that mention the price per unit.
number 20.
John, you want to leave the public comment?
5 minutes. What are the competitive advantages of POA or the, I'm okay with leaving that. Okay. Any more sources? Let's go back over the questions we had highlighted. We were at. Yeah. Covered in the conversation about management.
Yeah, that was already another question that covered it.
Yep.
We don't need it.
Okay. This was up for debate. Some of us felt like this was covered in the RFP when we talked about the phased approach and the timelines of building.
And I truly feel like that's not probably the question that's going to determine which developer is chosen.
Yeah.
Let's keep in
Was
mind what
there
we're
enough
trying.
information in the proposals that spoke about mothballing, who would be responsible in covering the cost?
The only reason I would advocate for is one of the pieces that we heard a lot in public comment at the work session was the excitement around the artists in residence. But if that's gonna be, if the school's gonna be mothballed and that's where we're getting that asset and it's gonna be several years beforehand, I do think that there is a consideration between creating senior housing more immediately with the, like, I think it's relevant in that the artists in residence was a key component as well of that proposal.
If Kate covers the artist on this, doesn't she?
She covers the selection and the prioritize.
Maybe we could add an addendum to Kate's question about how is this intention impacted should the Sherburne School be mothballed or, whatever the verbiage would be, but.
Or do we want?
Well,
I
don't
guess
think we
my,
can amend Kate's.
no,
language.
yeah, I feel like the other one, it's the funding that was closer. My concern is that we don't know if the school is gonna stay or not, so are we asking for an answer, are we asking an answer to a question that like may or may not matter, you know what I mean, I guess. So,
Oh,
we don't know if the school is staying or not,
Until we got through the,
until we
That's the
go.
public engagement.
which is why I say it's not really one of those things that should be whether, which is.
That, and that's what I'm saying, is we don't.
Valuable
we don't-
question, but not.
But since it does stay, shouldn't there be some knowledge now, or should there not be knowledge now?
I don't think we should
How
hide
carry
this.
the
I
burden?
don't think we should
I don't
bury
think,
it.
I don't think we're hiding the subject at all. We asked for
But I mean-
proposals with two different options, with or without the school. And most of these two gave several designs with and without. So I don't think we're hiding that the school could stay or could not go. So I guess Dave had said something about their phased approach and more just kind of what is their timeline within the phased approach of how long, if the scenario where the school is mothballed, what is the timeline of that before development on that part of the project would begin? Does that feel like,
The way I read the projects, Powell would develop the school, one of the scenarios would develop the school by the whole project would be done by 2028.
Yeah.
All right,
No phase.
the PHA project, one of the scenarios was build the L-shaped building,
Yeah.
mothball Sherman building, and that could be a 9-year project. Who knows? We don't know.
so
that.
that's what I guess I'm
So I would
asking,
think
if it is mothballed, when would you?
What's the timeline,
completion
phase
would-
one,
And I
phase two,
think
and
that's,
we're asking.
that's
the timeline.
relative
Okay.
to the project.
So are we okay with editing that question? You're just saying if the school is mothballed, what would be the anticipated completion date for that part of the project? If that's the, yeah, if that's the concern, I don't disagree that it's a reasonable question.
I think maybe a more revelatory question would be, what is your preferred scenario? Like asking the developer explicitly what they would want to do. And if one of them says, well, we want to tear the school down and build as many units as possible, then perhaps that's not the ideal developer. If the other one says, we want to inevitably transform the Sherburne School into artist residencies, but in order to get units as quickly as possible, we are phasing our approach.
So that's a question that goes out into the public arena.
Yeah, I think that's more of a public engagement question. I like the question, but I think that's more, again,
But then we know where the developer stands, what they would be pushing.
I felt like I read from POA that they wanted when they spoke about the sustainability aspect, and that was a big proportion of their proposal, that keeping the school and going with scenario 1A was the most
They actually called it up to be more feasible.
more feasible,
Yeah.
sustainable, and
Yeah.
I think more economic.
Yeah, I think that's why they ranked the way that they
Yeah.
do too, but.
okay, so I guess going back to just this question, because we have 5 minutes. Do we want to ask your direct question is if the school is mothballed, when is the anticipated completion date of that part of the project?
I think it would
Is
be,
that okay to
I
just,
think it would be a piece of information that would.
Okay,
help in this
perfect.
discussion.
You said it word for word.
great, wonderful. Okay, so we have the question from Byron, which is, what does your proposal specifically do to aim to attract families and children? There was a little bit of debate of whether.
I was thinking, if, maybe it's more helpful to ask the question around the different scenarios. What the anticipated student per unit ratio would be in the different scenarios.
Based upon their experience
Yeah.
with previous developments, but their previous developments. it could bring some accuracy, but
Yeah.
previous developments that
In
occurred
different
3,
cities.
4
Yeah.
years ago,
Yeah.
different locations.
Yeah, but I mean,
But-
this gives some.
But they'll have analysis of,
Yeah.
of the local area
Yeah.
in terms of the
Okay.
family numbers, but I
That's
don't
really
think we
what-
want it. I understand what Byron's saying, but do we want to get into, we want to phrase it so it's not, what's the impact gonna be on the schools? It's more, I agree with the idea of families.
Yeah.
Because there was a lot of conversation during the Places to Live dialogue about families and children and bringing that generation here.
Letting young families be able to come.
Yeah.
Can we ask? Yeah, trying to think of how, I understand the purpose and point. Is there another?
Does it feel like maybe this is not the time and the place to ask this question?
I think it's relevant now because it came up a lot in the last meeting and it feels like a deciding factor for how the city council might go based on family. Is there a way we could ask about the breakdown of 2 and 3 bedroom units in both proposals and how those decisions were made in anticipation of supporting more like, is there something?
I suggest you keep it.
I guess we just take the first sentence.
Yeah.
Let's take the first sentence.
And they can say, we do it through this number of unit counts. We're gonna have a community center there. We're gonna have these different things that are considered and will certainly add what's required through the community engagement.
That you have. Okay for everyone? Yeah, okay, great. Next highlighted.
Good job.
Good way.
That's it.
What is our level of involvement as a committee after this?
Well, that's a great question. So we have the ability to, tonight there were, I almost said Mr. O'Leary was not here. He did email the committee and felt like sending out questions was not necessary. He felt like the RFPs were thorough enough. And that we as a committee should make a recommendation based on those. So I would look at the committee, as we're gonna get these answers either way, because the city council has requested that. That this committee either tonight can take a straw vote. If people feel that they got enough information from the RFPs to make a decision, we can take a straw vote, or we can reconvene after the 2nd, but before the 16th, go over all of the written submissions, and then if the committee has a majority or unanimous decision for a recommendation of partner. The city council will be voting on the 16th, of which development.
Not the second.
No, the second will
That's when we
be,
get the answers.
the second will be the answers. Is the due date for the answers for the city council. It will be in that packet. And then a vote will happen
The
on
due date for answers is 11/27.
yes, so that it can be on, put in the packet.
That's when we needed to put in our package for December 2nd.
There was,
You could vote on the second.
we could vote.
We could vote on the second.
Discussion.
There was discussion, yeah, I'm just going off of, Attorney McCord's kind of timeline. So there could be a vote on the second. So if this body if there's members of this body that feel strong enough one way or the other, we could do a straw vote right now.
I would be in favor of that.
Okay, Mr. Henderson?
I think your recommendation is to receive the answers of the questions that we're asking and take a vote at a later date. Because these 2 proposals are so close
Mhm.
that the answers to these questions can either sway your position one way or the other.
Okay.
So I
Mary,
think it's important to get those answers.
okay. Mary, do you feel the same?
Yeah, I
Okay.
want more answers.
Okay, Byron?
I think taking time to deliberate is only upside. So,
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know what we're doing here if we're not gonna hear the answers to their questions.
Okay.
I think we have enough information.
I'm not
Oh,
gonna-
I just feel so strongly that like we need to keep pushing this forward and we need to come to a resolution and we could all talk about.
I promise you by the 16th, we'll have a resolution.
Yes,
by the 16th.
And I think by the second, it's even better. Yes.
Well, how many have a clear idea in their head? Their choice.
I like them both.
Find another site. That will be what we go for.
Yeah, that's what I would encourage. We have two very good projects.
Probably, but
Yes. Yes, so so the city council meeting on the second, representatives from both firms are invited to speak, and there may be counselors who, you know, based on the response, ask more questions. We will not be sending out more questions. This will be the only set of questions that go out.
Also, the questions will be published before the meeting, or the answers will be published before the meeting.
Once the packet goes out.
Send our opinion for the meeting at the second without having to do this discussion.
Yes, Byron.
Yes.
Sorry, this is gonna go back to one, I wanted to say one thing about the CIP.
Yes.
Which was in the Cook question, it was, like what conditions would cause the requirement to ask for CIP funding? Maybe this is the same thing, but I was thinking it would be nice to ask, like, under what scenarios is CIP funding appropriate? So like where the developer stands on like where they see the lines of where CIP is appropriate for use or not.
Do you want to say just CIP or do you want to say CIP/city?
City funding is definitely like what I think after there, yeah.
I'm not opposed to that question.
I'm not opposed, but can we, so CIP is the
Well, so
capital
Right.
improvement plan. It's not funding, right? So I just don't want to get confused as we are asking a question. You're always thinking about a plan.
Yeah.
To spend money.
I'm more interested in like.
Well, that's what I just
yeah.
Capital improvement funding is really what we should be talking about versus CIP.
Well, because city
I-
monies can be several things, waiving of fees, waiving of X, Y, and Z.
Right.
Yes.
Right, so I want to reiterate that it was issued in an addendum to the
Yeah.
proposal
Mhm.
that the city felt, and the city felt that a ground lease was adequate enough to support the project and that the city would not be putting forward any additional funding.
That's
So-
absolutely true. And that's, yeah. It's
So
when the
now
council's will,
we're
double dipping on a question.
opening the door, opening this Pandora's box of CIP, the city putting in additional money. So,
We let it dead down. Yes, we have the question.
And the other thing, the very last question was, do either one of these proposals have any changes that they would want to make to their admission, to their submission? Is that right? That's the catch-all question? I think that would be a very important question.
Supplemental information. So I view supplemental as not changing their.
Right.
That's how I don't view them, that somebody's gonna email in a whole new proposal in the week. Supplemental may be, here's another scenario that we, you know, here's how we could potentially alter our current submission. Here's how, but I don't think we're gonna get a whole new.
I wouldn't
RFP.
expect it. They've got
Yeah.
the time invested into what they propose now. If they
Yeah.
want to make anything.
I think supplemental is to answer some of the questions that we maybe took out, that they want to share more information, that, you know, that in that scenario, they may share more information of. We read the housing navigator report, we read the Portsmouth listings report, this is why we base this is why we base that. That to me is supplemental, so that's why I think that stays, but. Is there concern of that question? Okay. Okay, we're good. Yes, so, yes, Mary.
I had one other question. It might be too designy, but one of the things I liked in the POA was that they addressed the environmental concerns in the around, like the highway noise.
Yep.
And I didn't see that come out as much in the POA or PHA. And so I was gonna ask specifically the PHA, how would you address the
They're actually required to do so because it's in an overlay.
Yep, so that's gonna be,
Great.
under like site plan. Yeah, okay. Yes, one more.
Yeah, another one that I'm hoping we can answer here and not enter into the document, but this was kind of brought up earlier about collaboration and about the sort of the bogging down of residents who are living in multi-units who only need one room.
Yep.
Is there the ability for residents who are receiving rental assistance, living in affordable housing to be pre-approved and move within affordable housing units so that they don't have to go through the application process? We can say, you're living in a 3-bedroom, you need a 1-bedroom.
Yep.
We have a 1-bedroom that's opened up, we can move you without having to go through the application
That would
process.
be a question that that would not be in here, but we.
Yeah.
It certainly can be brought up.
We can talk about it another time. but
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then I guess one other thing is there was discussion of sort of rental assistance, and then also POA reinvests a certain portion of their profits back into their residents. I thought there could have been more clarification on that, but if people feel like that's in the proposals. Then
I think that's in the more community engagement conversation, if people feel that. Okay, I'm gonna open the floor very quickly for public comment. I ask you to keep your, in the words of the mayor, 3 minutes in your heart, 30 seconds on the clock. Yes, please sit right where it says Megan. Get off your head.
All right, Anna Kay, I just thank you quickly. I'd like to pick up on Councilor Tabor's, what he called his catch-all question, which is advantages in the community if we go with PHA. My whole career has been the nonprofit sector. I'm a junkie. It's my favorite sport. I think there's a wonderful piece of work being done here to solve housing, which we know is pressing. So thank you. I'm delighted by this project. The thing that I'd ask you to look at is that very question, not to ask those two entities, but to ask yourself and for the counselors to ask the question. I think there's a wonderful opportunity to strengthen Portsmouth Housing Authority as we go forward, to grow it, I mean, it's had great success, but I think we can build on that success and we can strengthen all of its current efforts and resource better its staff and other players. So I would just say, I think there's a problem being solved, but I worry there's an opportunity not being seized. So thanks.
Thank you, Anna. Next, yep, just come on up.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Linnea Grimm, speaking this evening in my role as co-chair of the Portsmouth Arts and Cultural Commission. So at a recent meeting, the commission approved the following statement related to the Sherburne School. The Arts and Cultural Commission urges the City Council to support Artist Live Workspace as called for in the 2023 Portsmouth, New Hampshire Cultural Plan as a key component of any redevelopment of the Sherburne School property. Is committed to work with any developer chosen for that project as a resource for the implementation of that goal, and supports adaptive reuse of the existing building as called for in the 2023 Portsmouth, New Hampshire Cultural Plan.
Thank you. Thank you.
Just a couple things quick on your change in specifications, or you're calling it something different. I just want to quote you from the New Hampshire Municipal Association Contracting 101. Can contract specifications be changed during the bidding process in response to the changing conditions? This will be a proposal process. Municipality cannot, after putting out one set of specs for bid, decide to accept the bid that is calculated on different specs. If the municipality decides to use the new specs, it must reject bids and advertise new specs to allow all possible bidders, because what you're doing here, if you do change this, is the other two that you're not selecting, they don't have an opportunity to respond because you cut them out already. Something for you to think about. My questions, I think you've covered most of them, but quickly, and looking at PHA's proposal for the 2027 completion is important to everybody on this commission and the council to get this as soon as possible. In reading over the proposal, POAH had a timeline, definite outlined. It wasn't clear to me with the phasing and the mothballing, and just like was said during the discussion, if the 2027 completion date was only phase one. So I would like to see PHA address that, and it just kind of raised doubts in my mind if they're going to move forward. The only other thing I want to say is on Councilor Bagley's question. That's a legal question, and in construction, when you don't have performance, you have it's something that the construction people would know. You have to get a performance bond. So the city would have something to go back on. If I'm sure you guys know about that. So that would be something that legal should be answering, or it's a quick answer. You don't even have to waste your time on it. Thank you.
Yep, next. Come on in. We have 3, 2.5 minutes.
I'm Jennifer Holloway. I live at 367 Colonial Drive in the Pinnaway Manor neighborhood. I want to thank you for your steadfast service to our city and getting into the weeds and the nitty gritty in this issue. Both great proposals. I feel like for me, as a resident of Portsmouth, the deciding factors are local management and local accountability, and I feel like PHA offers that to us. So that would be my vote if I were casting it tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Yep, come on in.
I'm Peter First. I'm a local resident and a planner in the area. My comments are echoes yours that my real concern is to have local management. I think it's a lot more important to have an organization that has a lot of history in the community. They're connected with local resources. And I feel like expanding the number of units at PHA would strengthen their ability to serve the residents in the future. Working with POAH as a Boston-based developer, they have experience in the Seacoast, but it's really not sizable, certainly compared to PHA. They have about 100 units compared to 700. It's a pretty huge factor. So I'm just saying I would support PHA and try to keep Portsmouth a place where people of all incomes can live, work, and contribute.
Thanks so much. Any other speakers? Okay, really quick. We have one, we do have.
Jim Smalley, both finalists are excellent. I do have a couple of concerns. For PHA, my concern is you control 25% of the rental units in the city, the largest landlord. I think competition would help. Competition would help improve both of us, both PHA and POA. We'd be making the largest landlord in the city even larger. And it's true that it would benefit PHA, but any award's going to benefit our organization, regardless. Let's see here. And you were bringing this up about the difference in the cost, 450 versus 100K. I don't know, would that be, and you don't have to answer it. Can product mix impact that? If one is recommending more 2-bedroom or 3-bedroom versus single units, there's concern over POA costs being too high, but there seems to be no skepticism over PHA costs being too low. That's always interesting. Let's see. That's it.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay. Yes, come on over. And then we will go to you online, and then if you have to leave for housing. That's what I.
Hi, I'm John Logan. I'm a resident on Dennett Street. I'm really happy to see this project moving forward, but I'd like to address a more future-oriented question, which is sort of what when Jen asked earlier, well, what's this committee going to be doing in the future? And well, in a couple of weeks, it's going to be over, or the project's going to be moving forward. I'd like to see this committee think about how to take advantage of the interest that's been shown by several different housing developers in working here. Whoever gets chosen for this project, there's 3 more really good ones out there waiting. And I think there's at least 3 more sites available in the city to work on. And somebody's going to have to start pushing on the next project and the next project and the next project. It's not just the one project and everybody says, oh, we're so happy we did our job, but rather the job isn't done until many more projects move forward. So that's what I'd like to ask you to do as a committee, is to plan after this is all settled and you've decided who the developer of the Sherburne project is going to be, then what? How to move beyond that. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
This one.
Okay.
My name is Maureen Mills. I live at 911 Greenland Road. I am the abutter. My husband and I are the abutters. I want to support the selection of Portsmouth Housing Authority for the project. I do think that keeping things local and having that kind of response that they've already proven is valuable. And oh, the other thing just left my head.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, and go ahead. Verity?
Hi, can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, good evening. So my name is Verity Boyer, and I'm here on behalf of the Portsmouth Advocates, the preservation arm of the Portsmouth Historical Society. And we strongly support the sensitive adaptive reuse of the former Sherburne School building. We feel that this building is a tangible piece of our city's history, and we believe it holds great potential to meet the pressing need for below market rate housing while maintaining its architectural and cultural integrity. So we encourage the committee to work closely with the top firms to incorporate preservation best practices into the project's planning and design. Doing so will ensure this property continues to serve the community in innovative and meaningful ways. And so thank you for considering preservation in the context of your development. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I will close public comment. Thank you to all of the committee members. Thank you to staff that was here. And to touch on one comment that was made, this committee is not sunsetting. Our next is to go back and start reevaluating the city sites in the new year. And thanks so much. Meeting adjourned. Motion.